So I'm assuming most of you have probably heard of this channel before. He was the guy that came out of nowhere and had some pretty hilarious takes on Wuthering Waves. And one thing that I do appreciate as well is people willing to share their opinions, even if I disagree with them. Sometimes I think the opinions are absolutely ridiculous. It's sometimes the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You could watch one of my most recent video if you would like to get more details on that. But at the end of the day, I still do appreciate people sharing their opinions as long as they're trying to actually be constructive and they're not just trying to tear something down. I want to take a look at what Nayer's got to say because it's why hardcore players are ruining games, specifically referring to Wuthering Waves. I think that's a hilarious place to start. Simply considering, I think Wuthering Waves compared to other gacha games is definitely way more catered to a hardcore audience. So the fact that he thinks that that's ruining the player base, I have to know what this man's is gonna say.
Hardcore players are ruining our games. Specifically, Wuthering Waves. So I consider myself a tier below hardcore. I min-max here or there if I have a favorite character, but I'm not gonna sit here and try to exhaust the entire game in a week. It's like these.
I actually, you know what? Out the gate, before he says anything I really don't like, I actually agree with this. I'm very much on the same page when it comes to being a player in gacha games, where I'm not going to find the absolute peak meta build and do literally the hardcore echo grinding to get the absolute perfect cream of the crop piece. I will do enough to know what is the optimal set for a character, and so I'm still using them well enough, but I'm not that sweaty that I'm going to like absolutely no life the game, especially within the first launch week of the game. Gacha games are marathons, not sprints in terms of progression. And so I think by trying to force a lot of that stuff, you're actually just going to burn yourself out of the game a lot faster and ruin your enjoyment. So actually, so far, kind of a based take. I'm not disagreeing as of yet.
People buy a family-sized box of cereal and they eat it within 2 to 3 days. Bro, learn some fucking serving sizes. I'm gonna go through some.
You know, he's got a point there too. I remember, I think it was like by day 1 or day 2. And I remember I was like union level like 18 or 19, and I was asking chat and they were like, oh yeah, I was watching this other guy and he's already union level 27. And I was like, holy crap. Like, what kind of secrets of the dark arts are these people using to grind that far into the game on launch? Like, take a breath, chew. Let it ruminate, explore the flavors.
Points on why I think these people are ruining the games. They're gonna cause some issues for this game, and you can't really do anything about it, because if people enjoy the game this much and they want to min-max it and they want to 100% everything, they should be able to do this 100%. But I think it has a lot of negative effects on the development of these games. So I want to go.
Hardcore players exist in every genre of game, particularly within gacha games as well. I mean, to be honest, that was something that PGR got a bit of a reputation for, was having a little bit of a sweaty hardcore community that was actually a little bit of a deterrent for a lot of new players wanting to come into it. But I think that part is the real key issue here. It's not that people want to be hardcore in a game that is a problem. It's when being hardcore in the game and only playing meta is the only way to have fun with the game. And if you're not going to play meta, then you might as well uninstall. That's when it's a problem. I don't think just simply being hardcore is an issue, or a game having hardcore players is a problem.
Go through how these actually affect the game. Content exhaustion. I hate how the game will come out and you have these people that will beat every single piece of content. And I talked about this a long time ago about how hardcore players were gonna beat the hard content on day 1.
That's true. Kind of in the same line of like the people who were reaching like union level 27, like in the first 24 hours of the game, there was people who were flying through the hologram towers, which again, like if that's how somebody wants to play, live your life, but that just feels like, I feel like I'm building up towards that, you know? Like, I feel like that's like some of the end goals here. So I don't know why people are trying to rush through that. I kind of see that.
And I don't think anyone's reached that level, because I think the devs understood, yeah, these people, they gonna run through the content. That's why you can't upgrade your echoes. They bottleneck echo XP. Like, they put all these locks on the game because they know these people are gonna just run through everything. And
well, that's also just a thing in like any gacha game. Like the material resource grind is like 100% just part of the core gameplay loop. Like, and it, generally speaking, in one form or another, it is time gated. So whether it be like in a classic idle game where like you were literally just waiting for resources to accumulate, or in like Wuthering Waves or Genshin, you're waiting for your stamina to regenerate so that you can get the resources. Like that bottlenecking is always like an artificial mechanic that's been added in there to slow the progression of the game and or to make more money, because you can also power level through that or power through that by, accelerating the timer or buying more stamina so you can actually grind out more content by, spending premium currency on it. So like it's a monetization method as well as a artificial bottleneck to slow progression in the game. He is right on that.
And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I mean, I've run through some of the content, but I know, let me take my time, because there are update cycles in these games. And if you just run through everything, you're going to be the one in someone's chat. You're going to be the one in someone's video comments talking about, bro, there's no content. Where's the content? What should I do? Oh, this game's trash. It has no content. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? It's like, dude, you did everything you were supposed to do. It's like becoming a billionaire. You beat the game.
Basically, every gacha game ever is intended to be played as a side game eventually. Like at some point, whether it be in the first week of the game or be in the first 2 weeks to month of the game, if you clear through all the content, you're going to hit what a lot of us like to call like maintenance mode on the gacha game, where you're not doing like a ton of extra progression. Maybe you're doing a little bit of, like in this case of Wuthering Waves, like some echo farming. You're doing your dailies, still kind of getting some XP and resources, but you are kind of waiting for the next patch. And it's during that time that you kind of move on to other games. Like I think it's like part of the natural cycle of gacha players to usually have a couple on the go. Like chat, let me know how many gacha games you have on the go. But I know at least for me, while I've definitely been slacking on some of the dailies, I've got, let's see, Nikkei, PGR, Wuthering Waves, and I was playing Snowbreak. Snowbreak's kind of fallen off, and same with like AFK Journey. So I kind of technically still have 5 gacha games I'm still diving into occasionally, but because we're still in kind of the honeymoon phase of Wuthering Waves, I've been slacking on those other ones. But basically all those other games I have are in kind of like maintenance mode at this point, where I'm just kind of going in, doing a little bit of progression and moving on with my life. Like that's the normal life cycle.
We got nothing to do. I mean, just imagine the strain that this will have on devs, because they build something that's supposed to be done within a certain cycle that causes people to call the game bad and there's nothing to do. It's boring. It's like, no, dude, you're the one that's just playing 16 hours a day, bro. Imagine if you took them 16 hours and did something else with it. Imagine how your life would be. Anyway.
If you want to be the kind of person who wants to play the same game for 16 hours a day, every single day and always have content to do, go pick up a PvP game or a MOBA. Go play League, a game where you can literally play endlessly, but like an RPG single player game like this, you're always going to get to the end of the line and you will always end up disappointed. So if that's really what you're looking for, go look in another genre.
Anyway, I think people pushing the game to its limit the first few days causes the devs to release lower quality updates. And I think we've seen this with a lot of games. I'm not going to mention other games because I don't feel like dealing with shills and crybabies, but you can think of.
Well, I think that can be true. The example he just pulled up there with the Overdash Club is not an example of that. It's an example of not a great event. Let's be clear. I don't think the Overdash Club was a great event, but Overdash was something that was released, I think, potentially even in CBT1, but definitely CBT2. That is something that they 100% carried over. But my guess and speculation is they didn't make the first 1.0 patch super event heavy because there is still a lot of the core content in the game at this point that people are still working through. So one, they didn't need to have a super heavy event, and two, probably because they didn't want to add more to the plate and wanted to be able to kind of address bugs and issues and things as they came up. As we've seen, they've needed to do, and they have addressed. There's been lots of hot fixes, but I'm sure it was probably a little more of a strategic decision. But I mean, again, they also took feedback on the Overdash event, and they're going to be correcting that in the future. They've acknowledged it. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing or a problem of hardcore players. I think just the general community realized, yeah, you know what, I think you can do more. I think you can do more. And Kuro was like, yeah, you know what, we probably can. So we'll do more in the future.
Of games that you probably know what I'm talking about, where over time the updates just felt rushed, things weren't thought through, the events kind of sucked. And I think devs do this to kind of satiate the hardcore players or people who just push all the content, because it's like, okay, well, we got to shut them up. They're right, the content, there is no content in the game, so I mean, we got to add something. And I feel like they don't actually get a chance to just really make something special. But
so he was 100% alluding to Genshin there. It seemed like he's implying that the lower quality events are because of the hardcore player base in Genshin Impact, which just is factually wrong. Like, Genshin knew that they were going to be catering to a casual audience when they released that article saying that, well, we don't want to stress out and give our players more anxiety, so we're not going to be increasing the difficulty. They knew exactly who they were catering to. They said they were not catering to hardcore audiences. They catered to the casual audience, and they got casual events out of it. So, like, if he is vague posting about Genshin here, that is 100% misplaced blame, because it's literally the opposite side of the player base that caused that. Or sorry, I should say it's the developers appeasing that side of the player base.
I feel like this is a issue that happens in most games that probably will happen with this game, because this game is more of a hardcore experience.
Okay.
Now, I'll be honest, okay? I like this one. I like this point here. I like this issue. So exploit discovery. Because hardcore players 100% the game, for the next 3 weeks, what you gonna do? Try to exploit the game, try to min-max. This is just the cycle of life. This is just what happens. And you find little hacks and exploits and cheats to bypass the regular game mechanics. In Wuthering Waves, there's a lot of echo exploits right now, and I'll be honest, I'm using them shit too, okay? Look, I'm there with you. I'm there with you. Look, I get it. But I'm just saying, although I like it, I think it's still bad for the game. I wonder.
We've seen other gacha games that have released in other regions ahead of time. PGR is a perfect example of that, where PGR released a whole year ahead in China before it released to the global audience. And the global side never got to have that experience of digging into the builds, digging into the memories, trying to find if there were other kinds of styles of gameplay and build that were more efficient. And actually losing that side of the exploration, I feel, is one thing that contributed to like the slow decline of the game, because it felt like by the time it actually hit a global audience, that discovery had all been done. Wuthering Waves releasing equally across all regions, and now we're getting into that exploratory phase, is a really cool thing. It's exciting. We're seeing new techs come out. Like, we already found, like, somebody already found the triple jump, and now somebody's already upped the triple jump to the quadruple jump tech. And like, I still don't see tons of practical application for it. I think I've used it once, maybe for like a Sonnet's basket or casket, whatever those glowy yellow things are on the map. But I think actually that discovery is one of the best parts of the game, to find new ways to play, to mix and match echo sets that you would think like, holy crap, I don't know why, but for some reason putting the Glacio set on Jianshin is absolutely cracked. I don't know why. I'm not saying that's a real thing, but finding those things are sick. And I love seeing the player base discover that kind of stuff. And I can't wait for them to find more builds like that.
100% do, because these exploits contribute to the content exhaustion, the pacing issues, which causes the devs to have to force updates or give low quality updates. And maybe this does or doesn't affect it, but it seems like it. I'm not at their headquarters developing the game. Maybe it doesn't affect anything. And if it doesn't, great.
Personally, I don't think finding those techs are going to affect the game in any kind of way. The only thing I can try and think of for like an example comparison would be probably like the inclusion of Hyperbloom in Genshin, where all of a sudden Hyperbloom comps just completely eclipsed like every other comp in Genshin Impact in terms of like DPS output. So then it kind of became like, well, why do you play these other teams, other than liking the characters, of course, but in terms of like efficiency, like why do you play these other teams? Like, but in that case, I would say that should call for like some kind of nerfs or balancing, as opposed to it just like, well, we need to force other things to be as good at it. We need to force other things to be there. I don't know. I think we're over worrying on that point.
Now I want to talk about the feedback overload, because I think these people are so unaware of themselves. They don't realize they are the problem. Now I'm all for feedback and criticism, but I think there is a point in which it's too much, and it's like, all right, bro, you're asking for way too much. And I think that's,
again, we're talking in the context of the hardcore player base here, but he's starting by saying the hardcore player base is giving too much feedback. I'm going to let him finish.
since these people are so aggressive, a lot of other issues get overshadowed, because it's like, oh, well, we gotta help these people because look how much they're complaining. And I think a lot of the issues that hardcore adjacent players experience aren't necessarily issues that need to be handled right away, when you could just wait for the next update. But it's like they want them to rush and rush and rush, and it's like, dude, just let them cook a little bit.
That was a whole lot of nothing on that point, I'm not gonna lie. Because so far, I think all of the feedback that has been given has been like fully appropriate. Like, unless chat's got an example here of like some feedback that was given that was like completely out of pocket or there was like overload in some way. The rest of it's been good. All the feedback that I've seen so far, because again, we're talking in the context of Wuthering Waves, all the feedback I've seen so far has simply been like optimization issues, feedback on some of the events, like the Overdash event, which again, everybody kind of agreed on. So I feel like we're kind of panicking about something that like doesn't exist. I don't think I've seen anybody advocating even for the early releases. Like at the time of recording, Yin Lin has been moved up and she's going to be launching today. Nobody said that Yinlin needed to be moved up as compensation and because we need more content. Like that is 100%. That's another conversation. It was another business decision that was made, but it wasn't based on the feedback of the hardcore player base. I think it was calculated because of the market. So I just literally don't even know where he's pulling that out of. And I don't think he does either because he didn't give a single example. What's this VAG posting?
Next, I want to talk about unrealistic expectations. Now, I'll be real. I'm a part of this too, okay? We all do this. We all imagine how the game could be or should be, but I think this is mostly bad for the game.
I want to go on record and say I was one of the first people that warned against too high of expectations for the game. I 100%. Hold on. Let me see if I can find this really quick for you, chat. I got to show you this. I did this video months ago. It was my biggest concern for Wuthering Waves. I did this 4 months ago, and it was talking about setting incorrect expectations for the game, and it was one of my biggest concerns for it at the time, and I did a whole video talking about it. Holy crap, I'm wearing the same shirt. No, I'm not. It's fine. Don't worry about it, chat. But I just want to put that on record that I talked about that 4 freaking months ago, okay? That's all I wanted to put that out there and say. I was the trendsetter. Let's let him keep going.
I don't necessarily think being hardcore is the specific issue with this. I think it's mostly all players, but you see it more from like hardcore players or the hardcore audience in general, where they'll apply these crazy expectations of the game because, you know, they're like, oh man, what if this mechanic could do this? Oh, the next character is going to be busted. Oh, they're going to blah, blah, blah. And we've seen this a million times. And I think this hurts the game because the reality is often disappointing. Perfect example I can give for this is Genshin. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if they added a character that did this and did this? Oh, dude, they could update the mechanics. They could do this. Oh, dude, they can buff this character. And then when they don't do it, we're like, oh, the game's trash. You can't apply these high expectations to a game that didn't plan on even being that thing that you want it to be.
There's a difference between being optimistic or theorizing about things that fall into the scope of the game versus creating fictional things that could like never exist. So for example, I think expecting Wuthering Waves to launch with like basically an unlimited number of bosses, that there's like no repetition and every boss is new and unique and going through it that way is like, yeah, it's an unrealistic expectation to expect that. But I think thinking of what are some cool bosses that they could include in the future, what are some cool creative mechanics that they could include, I don't think is unrealistic. And I think that is something that 100% we could theorize on or explore a little bit more. For those of us who played Genshin Impact when it launched, a lot of us talked about the idea of them including a new element in the future. And you know what happened? They did. Was that unmet expectations? No, what was is they were shaping the game and pushing people in the game to make stronger characters, but then never giving them a harder game mode. So I think because Wuthering Waves is trying to capture that hardcore audience a little bit more, that if they're wanting to keep that competitive audience, then yeah, they do need to look at finding ways to increase the scaling and the difficulty of combat. I think they've 100% launched with a great form of that though, with the hologram towers. Those things are hard as heck. Despite some people already clearing them, I think they're incredibly tough. And so it's balanced pretty well so far. And so I don't think being more optimistic for more combat events, for example, is unrealistic expectations. But again, he's speaking so vaguely about it that it's hard to like narrow down on any one single point.
I think Genshin is that, where it's like, yo, we're just casual. Like, we weren't trying to be a hardcore game. Like, what y'all doing? It's like,
hold on. The problem, though, is they were angling it like a hardcore game originally, meaning when you clear all the content in the game, when you clear all the story content, you do all the world quests, you do all the side quests, the only thing left to do is make your characters stronger. And if there's nothing to use your strong characters in, well, then that's an unmet expectation. But I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation. So that is where they dropped the ball. Now, when they came out and said, guys, those game modes are never coming. Don't wait for them to happen. Don't wait for them to come. That's not going to be a thing. Well, then, yes, then it becomes unrealistic expectations. And if anybody keeps complaining about that, It's a lost cause. They've made their bed, let them lie in it. Pre that announcement, pre that information, no, that was not unrealistic expectations.
Fortnite, they even added no build because like, bro, we never wanted to be a freaking try hard cracked game. We just wanted a fun game for people to play, and then y'all just want to fucking try to make this your career. Back to Genshin Impact. Yeah, people, they had these crazy expectations and they never, ever capitalized on them at all, like literally at all. I mean, we have Wuthering Waves today, so I think that we worked out fine, right? We're good. We're handled. Okay, we're handled. Thanks, Kiro. But still, yeah, I think unrealistic expectations could hurt games, and it does hurt games. So with Wuthering Waves, I feel like a lot of people say, "Oh, dude, the next characters are gonna be so cracked." They should, but when they're not, we just, oh, we're so disappointed. Oh God, how could they? How could they not make the best thing ever created in the universe? I mean,
I don't think I've heard anybody say the next character needs to be cracked. The next character needs to be so powerful and amazing. If anything, I just hear a lot of people saying that they want the character to be good and, well, to be frank, to be hot. Like, and I think for a lot of people love Jin Shi's design and they're stoked about Jin Shi. I'm stoked about Chang Li. Chang Li looks lit, dude. And that's not like unrealistic expectations. I think in a game that its primary monetization model is on selling characters and having expectations on the characters being released is not unrealistic expectations or expectations you should not have. That is 100% the expectation you should have. So again, he's pulling like weird examples here of like unrealistic expectations.
You gotta sit in reality. Not every character is gonna be busted. Not everything is gonna be this and that. And you don't know their plan. You don't know what they're trying to do with the game. And I think Wuthering Waves is gonna be fine, 100%. But I'm talking about it because I see it becoming a problem slowly but surely.
You know, someone in the chat mentioned it there too. 100% power creep is going to be a reality in the game. It is going to happen. Just expect it to happen. But I think most of us in the player base don't want the power creep to be so egregious that it feels bad to play the old characters. And as long as they're doing some decent pacing on the power creep when it does take place, I don't think it's going to be an issue. But I think to expect no power creep that's an unrealistic expectation. I think to expect characters to never power creep other characters is not a realistic way of looking at it, as long as, again, it's not so ridiculous that it's like, you know, Calcharo feels unplayable. Then I think we're fine.
Now we're going to talk about the meta. Now this one gets under my skin personally.
I'm going to get ahead of this one. I did a video talking about meta, and I talked about how guides and meta and giving advice and doing that and finding efficient ways to do combat is not a bad thing. Meta is not a bad thing. It's only bad if you're bad about it and you're a dick about it and you start going into people's chats going, "Hey, why aren't you playing this character with this character? You know they're the best way to do that. Why are you playing like that? You should actually have these echoes on there." Shut up. No one cares.
Because I think this actually ruins the game. This is the thing that ruins the game in its entirety.
Meta does not ruin the game. Only meta slaves who make other people's lives miserable ruin the game about it.
So the metas. And who creates the metas? The hardcore players. The reason this is an issue.
You don't create meta. Meta is discovered. They're not developing the game. They're discovering combinations that work efficiently.
Issues because with games where you have builds and stuff like that, where you can have classes, or let's just stick to Wuthering Waves, you can build your character and you have this ecosystem. I think the fun is building your own character, finding out your own builds. But when you have these people that just automatically apply meta, say, "Oh, you're not optimizing your character great enough. Oh man, you need to have this echo, you need to have this." It's like, bro, like let people experiment and have fun with the build. And it's like you put pressure on people. Oh well, you're not gonna beat this boss if you don't have this meta. It's like the whole fun of hard content is figuring out the hard content. Why are you
Now that is not how everyone likes to play, because there are the casuals or the people a step below the hardcore, like we talked about at the beginning of this video, the people a step below who want to be able to look up and say, "Oh yeah, oh, you know what, just going full Havoc set on Rover is actually going to be good. Okay, I'm going to do that." And you know who probably discovered that? Probably the hardcores who actually did the testing in it, you know? Like if you are a step below hardcore, you end up appreciating the hardcores who discovered that. It's just don't back, like chat said, don't backseat game. Just let people play the game because the game's about having fun.
Stripping the fun away from the game, which is building the fucking character. Why would I even play the game if you just gonna play it for me? But then when you have these people that just completely min-max and they force you and pressure you into building it a certain way because, oh, if you don't have the optimal build, you're a loser. Let me give you an example. What's his name? Lin Yang. Everyone said, oh, he's trash. He's so garbage. Bro, when I got that dude to my account, he obliterated everything. What are you talking about? He's trash. How is he trash? Wow, he does.
He's not trash from like a mechanical perspective. A lot of us just don't like his design. Like that's what most of us were saying. Like, look, if I'm picking here between freaking Ling Yang and Calcharo's gonna win any freaking day of the week in terms of design, gang. Like, he looks way cooler than Ling Yang in that case. Do I think he's got a great novelty to his kit when he's jumping around on the drums and he's jumping around? I think it's pretty neat. And I think the sound effects that come along with it when you're activating his concerto effect, it's really cool. However, I also think there's some problems with this kit where when you are jumping around in the air, you actually can get hit by bosses. And in some of the hardcore content, when you can be one-tapped, that makes you pretty vulnerable. But that's just me. That's a skill issue for me. If you have more skill with the character feels more natural to you, you're probably going to be able to play around that. Nobody's actually saying Ling Yang is bad. We just don't like him as much as the other characters from a design perspective. No one's saying you can't play Ling Yang, bro. Again, man's is arguing ghosts. No, like, holy.
Does 1% less than Calcharo. Shut up. He's not fucking trash. There's no character in the game that is trash. That's why I say, bro, this is so annoying where it's like this meta because these people are operating on like of the 1%. Like,
that's true, actually. Base take. If character damage output is within 5 to 10% difference, meaning you can clear this boss in 30 seconds instead of 40 seconds or 45 seconds or something ridiculous like that, then bro, I do not care. Let me play who I want to play.
Like, oh man, well, this character is actually way better because they do 2% more damage in this specific scenario. It's like, bro, the fuck you talking about? Here's my rule. If it does 20% extra, it's better. If it does anything less, I don't give a fuck. I'm sorry.
Based.
All right, this one roused me up. Maybe I'm doing too much. And if I'm doing too much, let me know down in the comment. Let's just move on. Okay, let's move on to the last point here. Now this last one is adjacent to the meta and it's gameplay monotony. I think this is bad because if everyone is playing the game the exact same way, what the fuck is the point of playing the game? Everyone has the same exact build. They have the same exact artifacts, echoes on their characters. I think this is bad for the game because it's just like, bro, the point of having a ecosystem or artifact system is so that people can build the characters they want, how they want, and try different things. And I think more specifically the ecosystem because the echoes have abilities themselves, so you can really customize your build. But what
So this is mostly just an extension of the point he was just making about meta. That is if you are a meta slave. If you only play the meta, then of course that's what's going to happen. But again, you can always tell those people to shut up. And you can play the game however you want to. And you can try the different echo sets if you want to. No one is saying you're not allowed to do that, and people who do are just dumb.
What I've been seeing is a lot of people just using the same fucking template, the same shit. It's so bad. We're talking team comp. People is playing the same team comps. Oh, you play more Mortify with this character and you gotta play. It's like, what? Oh, it's gonna make the game feel boring. You're watching a video and you're copying to a T what that person does and you're not actually having the fun because the fun of the game isn't beating the hard content. It's learning how to fucking beat the content. Oh man, how do I beat Memphis or Tempest? Well, his name is so stupid. They tried to rhyme it. You're not Dr. Seuss. Sit down, Kuro.
Okay. One, it's Kuro. Mans keeps saying Kuro. Don't know why. There are characters in Wuthering Waves that are built specifically to synergize with other characters in the game. Perfect example. Yin Lin enhances electro damage and provides off-field electro DPS. She is a natural pairing unit to Calcharo. That is just within her kit design, they fit together perfectly like a puzzle piece as being perfectly complementary characters. More Teffy falls into that too by enhancing heavy attack damage. There are just certain characters that are going to naturally and more organically synergize with the other characters in the game. And so of course there's going to be team comp crossover. And also nobody's saying you have to use those characters. So many people in that step below hardcore and meta look up the guides of the hardcore and meta so they can use the resources they have in a more efficient way. That's not a problem, bro. What are you arguing right now?
Dr. Seuss, sit down, Kiro. This is just how I feel. I feel like this really ruins games, and it would be nice to see different stuff. And maybe this is Kiro's fault for just putting stuff in the game where you can only do something one way. But what I've seen is there's tons of other builds that people use that are just as good or better than what the meta is. So yeah, I think the hardcore players definitely create this like repetitive environment.
Can you provide me one example? Like, bro, this is the other thing too, where I'm saying he's vague posting so much in this. Like, he's gonna go out there and make the statement of, I've seen people using non-meta comps that work better than the meta comps. Okay, well, what is one? Bro, you're gonna sit here and say that and make that claim and not give one example? One example? Come on, man.
In games. So yeah, that's the video. That's just what I want to talk about today. Subscribe, like, and comment, you know, do all that YouTube juicy stuff. Yeah, okay,
do all that YouTube juicy stuff. Oh, that's good, so good. Look, shout out to Nair. I think he's got some pretty rough takes at times. I do appreciate him making those takes. I think he's doing it and it's coming from a place of actually like caring and enjoying the game. So I appreciate the feedback that he has been giving so far. Again, I think Mance is arguing ghosts a little bit. I think there's a lot of concerns that he's brought up that I think there's no evidence bearing any of that out. And so it's kind of interesting to me that he's going to go out of his way to make some of those arguments, but it is what it is. That's going to bring us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to catch me live, you can find me every Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern time here on twitch.tv/Connorsthoughts. Make sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, gang. Shout out to chat. Shout out to all the subscribers. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.